Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with apple cider glazed pork chops. That's right, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to do a really easy recipe or a really tasty recipe, so I decided to do both. And this is the kind of dish I love doing on Food Wishes because it's got a lot of flavor and only a couple ingredients. So here we go. The first of these few ingredients is center cut pork chops. So I'm going to season those generously with salt and pepper. And if it looks like there's a tiny bit of dry herb in this seasoning blend, there is. This was left over from another recipe, so I think there was a little bit of herb de Provence in there, just a tiny bit. So nothing to be concerned about. So I'm going to season those on both sides with salt and pepper. In case you're keeping score at home, these are about 6 or 7 ounces each. And once those are seasoned, we're going to go over to the stove where I have a heavy skillet on medium-high heat. I'm going to put in a little bit of vegetable oil and a chunk of butter. And as soon as the butter turns kind of a nutty brown, we're going to start frying our boneless pork chops, which is quite the oxymoron because if there's no bone in it, it's not a chop. But regardless, that's what the Butchers of America call this, so that's what we have to call it. Thanks a lot, Butchers of America. All right, so we're going to add our pork to the pan, and I'm going to cook that all the way in the pan. A lot of these type of recipes, you'll mark both sides. You'll throw it in an oven to finish. But I want a nice amount of browning on there. I want a nice fond on the bottom of the pan to make our glaze with. So I'm going to fry these for about 6 or 7 minutes aside. I don't mind my pork loin to have a little bit of pink in it. Just a touch. But anyway, we're going to leave that up to you and whatever internal temperature you think is optimal. And I started frying on medium-high, but if it seems like it's too hot, I'll turn it down to medium. We want that nice brown caramelization happening at the bottom of the pan, of course, but we don't want it turning black. So feel free to adjust your heat down a little bit if need be. And once I thought mine were cooked enough, I pulled them off on a plate. I'm going to turn off the heat at this point, and we're just going to reserve those until our apple cider glaze is done. So let's go back to the pan. Remember, the heat's off. I'm going to throw in some finely minced garlic. Now at that point, you can turn the heat back on to medium-high, and we're going to take our freakishly small wooden spoon, and we're just going to give that a quick stir in that hot fat. Maybe 20, 30 seconds. I don't want to brown the garlic. I just want it to start sizzling a little bit. So like I said, after about 30 seconds, that's all you need. We're going to go ahead and dump in some apple cider vinegar. That's going to stop the garlic from browning. It's also going to deglaze the pan, of course. And again, it's all about the fond. Those caramelized meat juices at the bottom. So essential. And then we're going to dump in 2 cups of apple cider. This was just freshly pressed apple juice. I don't think it's filtered, but I don't really think that matters. But anyway, it's the cloudy kind. It's not that clear apple juice stuff, although I have done this recipe with apple juice before, and it works. I'm also going to give it a spoon of Dijon. I really like a little touch of mustard in this. And then all you're going to do is wait till this boils and reduces down to a glaze. So you can pretty much put the heat up as high as you want. And because you're using a nice wide skillet like this, it's not going to take that long, so don't walk away. Because if you burn this, you kind of wasted a lot of effort. And you'll be eating plain, undressed pork chops, which is kind of sad. So don't go anywhere. Keep your eye on this. And when it starts getting down low like that, and you can see it clearly thickening up, maybe reduce your heat down just a hair to be safe. So at this point, I turn my heat down to medium. And at this point, we're going to put in the last few ingredients. The first of which is some finely minced rosemary. All right, a little bit of fresh rosemary, beautiful in this sauce. And then to heat things up, a nice big pinch of red pepper flakes. Anything hot would work, of course. What about cayenne? No, that would be horrible in this. Do not put cayenne. And yes, of course, I'm totally kidding. Cayenne would be fine. But I kind of like the look of the red chili flake in this. So that's what I went with. So I'm going to stir that in. And when I think it's reduced far enough down, which is pretty much right about there, let's go ahead and give it a quick taste. Mine needed a little bit more salt, so I threw in a little more of my salt-pepper mixture. Give it a stir. And then simply add your pork chops back in. Oh, check out my imitation. Pork chops and applesauce. That's an imitation of Jimmy Cagney doing Peter Brady doing Jimmy Cagney. Thank you very much. You probably want to give those like a minute on each side in that hot sauce. And that's it. You are ready to serve. We're going to throw those on a plate. Spoon over some of that amazing glaze. I serve mine very simply with an apple raspberry salad. Just a very iconic combination, pork chops with applesauce. And yet, because we're using a pan reduction, it's kind of different. So very familiar and friendly, yet slightly exotic. All right, I need to taste this. My beautifully cooked pork, just the tiniest tinge of pink in there. Tender, juicy. I did not brine this batch, by the way, but really you could have. I love brining pork loin. And then along with that juicy, perfectly cooked meat, we have this kind of sweet yet tart, slightly spicy, sticky yet not too thick, perfect apple glaze. So delicious, perfect for the fall. Just a really nice, and like you saw, extremely easy pork recipe. So I really hope you give that a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.